In a past life, I left my base to drifting solos. A note in a mailbox details my story. The river, strong but careful, carried me here. I can hear the mainland. She cries of chaos. I drift further away as her tears surround me. My legs grow heavy and pull me under the waves. But to my surprise, I can breathe in the blue. The story of a solo and a new beginning starts and ends with blue. The story begins on the beach. I had a few ideas in mind for this wipe, but I quickly began to realize the toxicity was overwhelming for a solo, and usually I'm able to run past the chaos and find my home. But as you'll see, this time it was different. If you're enjoying this content, I encourage you to subscribe. All dreamers are welcome.
Hello.
Hello. With wounds covering my body and blood in my eyes, I finally made it to Outpost. What is this? I'm not too sure what was going on here. But regardless, I recycled and I disappeared. Not only was I starving and close to dying, but as soon as I left Outpost, trouble found me.
You got any low-grade fuel, boy? Hey, boy, I'm talking to you.
I got nothing, man. Nothing.
Why you tight?
Yo, you can take my stuff, dude. You can just pick me up.
I love your loot.
Alright, that's cool, man. No
I
worries.
love.
At this point, I needed to stop. And so I sat there and looked out into the ocean at Oil Rig, the only light and comfort in my sight. Now, you all know, solos don't give up. I just needed a different plan. And so, the storms out at sea turned into brainstorms in my mind. I crossed the lands in search of my home. The snow biome wasn't my first option, but I would settle if I could find a corner that I could make cozy and warm. But once I reached my corner, I realized it was taken. So I continued my search, and as I was leaving the area, I saw this hot air balloon. They didn't seem too much of a threat, but that was mostly because they were being shot at. This area would definitely result in a raid on wipe day. And so I waved goodbye and I continued searching. After this death, I knew I needed to make a change. So I spawned out here in the desert. I grabbed this boat and I looked for a place against the mountain facing the ocean that I could use to build a base on land. And this spot was perfect. So, I did some farming. And then, I started building with the idea that this base was going to look patched up so that raiders might not waste their time and just move on. This tiny base would be my spawn location for land. I was planning to take my main base out into the middle of the ocean, but to do that, I would need a lot of resources. So I put aside some time just for farming. Luckily, farming is something I enjoy, but out here, I needed to be patient, cautious, and quick. Short runs are the best way to secure the most amount of farm, and that's exactly what I did. Eventually, I was exhausted, so I switched up the task and decided to take the boat out into the deep blue and farm some barrels. while I was out on my boat, I noticed an area that had a lot of nodes. So I grabbed my pickaxe and I headed there to farm. When I was done, I got back in my boat and headed to my patched up base to secure the loot. My TC was full of stone, and that was plenty for what I was gonna build, but I still needed more wood. With my hatchet in hand, I headed over to chop some trees down. And as the sun was rising the next day, I found a road nearby that led me to some barrels, and so I began farming the road. I did this until the sun was high enough for me to begin building my ocean base. It was time. I collected all my loot and I snuck out to my boat. As quickly as I could, I got as far away as I could because I had too much on me to lose. But before I got too far away, I needed to make a stop at the fishing village to purchase an oxygen tank. With my eye on the map, I kept going further and further away from land, all the way to the furthest point that would allow me to build. And here, I turned off the engine. And I dived into the blue. All the way down below, at the floor of the ocean, I began building my home. Or your eyes only, so you can see just how far down we really are. Finally, we reached the surface. I couldn't believe it. Here I was, standing, with my doors open, surrounded by water. No players in sight. Out here, I felt safe, distant from the chaos that was happening on land. But in order to survive, I had to make trips back to land for farming and for collecting the essentials for my ocean base. So I hopped in my boat and I headed back to my patched up base to get some work done. The wooden door that I had on my ocean base was not gonna cut it, so I started smelting some metal to craft a sheet metal door. I hunted as much as I could because low grade was going to be essential for moving around. And in the darkness, I waited for my metal to smelt as the night made its course. And as I waited, I thought about my progress, and I was proud because this was no easy feat. Before making the trip back to my ocean base, I headed out to collect more scrap and loot and hunt. And when I was satisfied, I headed back and prepared for the voyage. I couldn't help but feel excited for my new base. I started developing plans on how I was going to expand the base and turn it into something very cozy. But as I started getting closer and closer to the base, I noticed that something was wrong. And finally, it was clear. That was not my door. My ocean base had been raided. I had already spent so much time building this that I didn't want to waste any more time. I needed to pull out the blueprint and start planning for something new. I was so close to being so far. Thank you for watching, and a special thanks to my YouTube members. Stay tuned for part 2. You've been watching an Orange Dream production.